So you have block, you have the balls. We're going to be finding the spot right at the back of the skull, right along here. Right? That's where your skull meets your neck. There's a whole bunch of little muscles that crisscross right there, the suboccipital muscles, and that's where we always start here. We're going to drop into those guys. Watch your ponytails. Ponytails can get pinched into the balls really easily. Now, the block underneath has two purposes, and one is to elevate a little bit and add to the pressure, but also it's to keep the balls from rolling. When I find the balls are on the floor directly, I'm more likely to kind of slide out from under my head. So if the block ever feels like it's too much, you can use something smaller. Books are great because they come in all kinds of things, right? So starting here, as we always do with the balls, which is just the pressure, right? The weight of your head on the balls, feeling the tissues, start to just feeling it. Really, the very first thing you feel is your nervous system noticing, and that's where you get those sensations. So it's giving you're giving your nervous system feedback through the balls, and it's giving you feedback through the sensations you're feeling. It's actually kind of a nice way to think about it. I think a lot of times we get really frustrated about feeling pain or discomfort, and if you can sort of intellectually separate from it a little bit. So as we're going here, we're going to start doing some little movements, a little yes and no. If you can intellectually separate from it a little bit and think of it as your body just giving you information, so that if you're feeling a little pain here, your body's telling you something, and you can be sort of curious about it and see what you can do to change it. All right, turning the head to one side and then the other, and you might find on one side there's a lot of stuff going on, so you want to stay there, and then do all the things we started, the gravity, the yes, the no, all those little movements now in this side, in kind of in a little micro area. And then checking out the other side to see what you're feeling. And again, very frequently one side will feel like it needs a lot more attention than the other, and that is totally fine. And as we go, we're going to go ahead and drop the balls down the neck a little bit, so they're off the skull and just at the top of the neck. If this feels too intense, again, a lower level, a book or something, or a pillow underneath instead of the block might help. And then as we turn side to side here, we're getting into the sides of the vertebrae, which is a place just like the greater trochanter where lots of muscles attach. And shifting the balls a little bit lower, and same stuff. Right? So then maybe there's one more spot for those balls to go. And at this point, my head is also resting on the block, which is pretty comfortable. Leaning from one side to the other. And then you're going to take your block and set it by your hip. You're going to take the balls out of the bag. And we're going to take them now underneath our shoulders. So it's going to be here, right in here in this area, in the upper trap. So in between the spine and the shoulder blade on each side. As you set up here, you want to make sure that you've got some room to go above your head, wherever your head is, so you're not going to roll into furniture or anything like that. So finding that position, finding the balls, right? I always like to sort of aim the balls closer to the spine because they tend to separate as you roll. So starting them there. And the block now can go, if this feels good to lift up and have a little more pressure, it can go underneath your hips. So now, starting here, with that same, just relaxing onto the balls, noticing what kind of feedback you're getting. Is there discomfort? Is there pain? Always feel it's totally fine to shift the balls a little bit. If you're like, ooh, that's too much, shift the ball a little bit one way or the other, up or down, and see if that helps. And then once you've relaxed into it a little bit, same thing, little movements, up and down, Little movement side to side. Kind of move through the shoulder blades a little bit. And then we add in any kind of arm movement. All those same arm movements we did at the beginning on the roller, on the blocks. We can take those in. We can do snow angels. We can do seaweed arms. We can take the arms into that goalpost position and internally and externally rotate. All right, see what you feel. And when you feel like you've sort of exhausted that spot, you're just gonna lift your hips up, take the block with you as you roll up over the balls. So now the balls are in between my shoulder blades, sort of toward the top half of my shoulder. So this changes the sensation a lot, right? It's a whole different set of muscles now that are feeling all the things that they're feeling. You can take a second to kind of check into that and then start those little movements. Side to side, up and down. You can do a little, as I get onto the shoulder blades, I like to do a little sort of rotation of the chest and shoulder girdle. And the best way I've thought to describe it is when a little kid pretends like they're driving a car and they kind of turn their body side to side. That's what it is. So grab your imaginary steering wheel and add that feeling in. And then again, of course, any kind of arm movement that feels good. The feeling intense sensation or pain is not the point of this. It's frequently sort of a subset of it. And I wouldn't even want you to go too far into anything that's painful. Right? We want this to be ultimately a positive experience. Having said that, some discomfort, tolerable discomfort, right? That's where we're aiming for. We feel like that's okay. So shifting up a little bit again, this time I'm moving to a position where the balls are kind of at the base of my shoulder blades. So I'm still in between my shoulder blades, but down toward the bottom of them now. So different muscles, right? Because the muscles attach in different spots. In this space in between the shoulder blades, there's a ton of muscle and all crisscrosses in different configurations. So there's a lot there, a lot of sensation.
Crisscross arms is interesting.
Crisscross arms?
Like crisscross.
Oh, yeah. So that opens things up a lot. We could do the Lara, right? Give yourself a big hug.
Give yourself a big hug.
I actually like to do the hug and then do that sneaky little like driving my car. And then any of those arm movements that we've done so far in any position are all available to you. One arm overhead, one arm by your side sometimes, especially here with the balls in between the shoulder blades. There is interesting stuff back there. And then we're gonna roll again. You guys do not need to do this. I'm gonna sit up for a second because I want to just shift a little bit. I want to run into the cupboard. All right, so now the balls are into the back of the rib cage. All right, so now we're really thinking about the erectors that go along the spine. The paraspinal muscles, all of them, that keep you upright, that manage the rotation, side bending in the spine. So those guys can get pretty ropey. I've heard those described as ropey or like cables a lot. And that's what I was talking about before. They're like that because they act like cables. They almost act like the cables on like the Golden Gate Bridge or something, on a suspension bridge, holding you up. And then rolling up back a little bit more, again into the ribs. A little bit less happening with arm movement here, but as we get closer to the pelvis, one of the options we have is to take the block away and drop the hips down, which can add now to the intensity with the balls underneath you. So my balls are right at the base of my ribs. And now I can start to shift through the legs and pelvis to start to affect those tissues. I can pick a leg up and see how that feels. I don't like that here. I'm not going to do it again, right? I'm going to roll a little bit farther up so that now I'm getting into the low back, just a little bit into the low back. And then same thing. Something I really love here is this sort of like windshield wiper legs. You're dropping legs to one side and the other. shifting as you feel the next spot needs you. As you get lower into the low back, you also have the option now to do a little bit of a tuck with the pelvis, and you can either keep the pelvis on the floor. So it's small, it's kind of hard to tell, but if these are the bones, I'm just tucking them a little bit this way and this way. All right. As I get closer to the pelvis, I might physically pick up the pelvis as a part of that movement, where I'm tucking and then lifting. It's just a little bit of a bridge. And then same thing, I can drop to one side, to the other. As I get into the low back, and I'm right about here right now, I'm sort of just about where the top of my shorts is. I'm also getting into a really important little muscle called quadratus lumborum, the little square muscle in your low back. Pretty important for posture, back health, right? And again, little tucks, you're lifting the hips up. And I'm trying to make most of that happen with the core muscles. I'm not driving through my legs the way that I would be if I were trying to do a glute bridge. The legs are just helping a little bit. And then rolling. So now I am right up against the crest of the pelvis that we looked at before. So I'm feeling all those little muscle attachment points now as I move back and forth, as I lift one leg up, maybe, and hug it in a little bit. That feels nice now. A little too intense before, higher up the spine, and here it feels good. And then I'm going to go ahead and just lift up enough to get the balls out and move them to the side. And then find a comfortable position to be in, some breathing. You might like to take the roller and put it behind your knees. If you have a pillow, or it might be nice to put your phone off, that will feel good. You guys, your mileage may vary. Find what works for you. And then just kind of wriggle your body around until everything kind of flops and releases. You also have the option to have your feet flat on the ground and your knees bent. If that feels better to your back. If you're near a piece of furniture, you could throw your legs up onto it, which also feels nice. And we're just gonna breathe. We've talked a lot about breathing and about the rib cage moving. So we're just gonna let everything go nice and loose. So there's no real goal for any of the muscles to be doing anything particular. But you might put your hands on your belly, or maybe your chest, or maybe one on both, so that you can feel what your breath is doing without thinking too much about it or managing it too much. Just inhale and exhale. You might put your hands on the sides of your ribs. And just notice what they do. You might put your hand kind of gently on your throat, just above your collarbone. And check in there to see if those guys are contributing to your breathing. And they do, and there are definitely times when they should, but in a relaxed breath, these guys up here should be also relaxed. If you were running from a bear or having an asthma attack, then these guys would assist, these muscles in the front of the throat attached to the top ribs so that they can assist in breathing when they're needed, but they shouldn't be the primary movers of breathing. So your neck should be pretty soft. And then hands on the belly, at your side, whatever feels good. Just take a couple of breaths here. And just thank your body for doing all the things it does. And under these current conditions. One more nice deep breath. And exhale. And as you're ready, you can roll to one side. You might want to pause there in a fetal position for a minute. So that this is a nice, slow, easy transition. And then press yourself up to a seated position whenever you are ready. Or you can stay there. You're at home. It's your house. You stay there as long as you want to.